Okay, let's unpack this. If you are in marketing or in strategy, you know that absolute terror of watching your product become a commodity. That moment when a shopper looks at your brand, looks at the cheaper one, and just, shrugs. They pick the other one because they genuinely cannot see a difference. That brutal fight against interchangeability is our deep dive today. We are looking at a really mature, low-involvement category, using an open-source marketing review for Gulfa Water as our case study. It's a long-standing UAE brand founded way back in 1975. And look, our mission here isn't to judge their internal performance, not at all. Instead, we're trying to reverse engineer the strategy needed to survive this kind of risk using only what we can see publicly, their website, social media, financial signals.
And that word you used, interchangeability, that is the structural hazard here. Bottled water is, it's maybe the ultimate fast choice category in the world. You're grabbing it from a fridge, you're tossing it in a cart, you're not really thinking about it. That high-speed, low-involvement decision just means substitution is a constant, unavoidable reality. If a choice isn't driven by a clear brand preference, it just defaults to the two easiest things, price or availability.
Whichever is cheaper or closer.
Exactly. And when we look at Gulfa's public messaging, they have a good story. They talk about heritage, purity, minerals, hydration. They have that lovely tagline, "Our wells, your well-being," it's all there. But here's the challenge. Every single one of their competitors is also talking about purity and hydration. So the primary risk we saw immediately is whether this story, with all its different parts, is actually sharp enough to resist substitution when someone's standing in the aisle with 5 seconds to decide.
Right, that moment of truth. And that's where this review identifies one dominant focus, one clear strategic bet they have to make. It's this: reduce substitution by radically simplifying and repeating one clear value story.
Just one.
Just one. Because that bet matters so much. If the message needs any interpretation, if a consumer has to connect 5 different dots to figure out why they should choose Gulfa, it's already failed. Choice just defaults straight back to price. So success from the outside isn't about more content. It's about seeing fewer core messages, a single lead story everywhere, and just disciplined repetition. That's what builds recall, not just, temporary visibility.
It's the difference between being seen and being remembered. And what we saw is a perfect example of what happens when a long-standing brand tries to cover all its bases.
And so let's get into that. What are the messages that are loud and repeated today? We see purity, check. Hydration, check. Well-being, check. The natural source, the wells, check. And local trust, that long-standing heritage, which is a huge asset. Check.
On the surface, it looks great, right?
It does. It's totally consistent with what you'd expect in the category in the UAE. But that's the trap, isn't it? The real question is, does the way they phrase it, the way they show it, make any of those themes uniquely owned by Gulfa? Or are they just meeting the basic expectations that every other bottle on the shelf is also meeting?
What's fascinating here is how these messages actually compete with each other. It's almost a kind of internal sabotage. If a brand gives you 5 equally important things to remember, purity, heritage, source, minerals, format, which one do you actually remember?
Probably none of them.
Probably none. And you see it in their portfolio. You've got these huge bulk dispensers for the home and then tiny bottles for the gym, all promoted at the same time. Commercially, look, that makes sense for a mature FMCG player. You need market share. But from a marketing standpoint, it's a killer.
Yeah.
You have messages and formats all competing for that same tiny window of attention. The result is what we call diluted recall.
That phrase, diluted recall, is so critical. It's like if I give you 3 phone numbers and said they're all equally important, you'd just forget all 3. If the brand story is that fragmented, the risk at the shelf is that the consumer's memory just fails, and the choice defaults away from the brand story and right back to the only variables left.
Price, availability, or the promotion.
Exactly. Whichever one looks tempting in the moment.
And we can see the warning signs of this without even looking at their sales data. The first one is obvious: price-led switching. Shoppers feel comfortable switching if they don't have a clear reason to be loyal. The alternative feels basically the same.
And the second thing is that reliance on what you'd call category-level language, using words like safe, pure, hydrating. It feels good, it feels right, but safety so often leads directly to substitutability in these categories. Safe is forgettable.
And the commercial consequence is this spiral toward higher price sensitivity. The brand actually trains the consumer to look for a deal. And if promotions are the main thing you see, the 50% off banners, then the brand story gets completely overshadowed. The promotion becomes the only visible reason to buy.
So that's the core pressure point. If marketing keeps signaling 5 good reasons instead of one great one, the whole decision shifts. It becomes a commodity comparison. And marketing stops being a builder of preference and just becomes an amplifier for short-term volume tactics.
It's a trap, because the response is always to do more channels, more content. But as the review found, more activity doesn't fix it. More channels don't fix it. Only clear, repeated preference signals can break that cycle.
And to really understand why that discipline is the only way forward, we have to look at the market itself. The structural constraints in the UAE bottled water market are, well, they're fixed. The strategy has to work around them.
It does.
So what are the first? Shelf saturation. You've got these crowded retail shelves, almost no visual space between brands. Second, pricing pressure. High frequency, low involvement. Price comparisons are constant. And third, the formats are all crowded. Everyone has similar bottle sizes. You can't just invent a whole new category here.
Given those three things, any strategy that's based on we serve everyone is just structurally weak from the start. And treating message variety as a strength, it doesn't signal depth. It just signals indecision right at the point of choice.
It's confusing.
This raises an important question then. What should marketing do instead of trying to be comprehensive? And the answer is just discipline. In that kind of environment, clarity beats cleverness every single time, and repetition always beats variety.
It has to. The message has to survive that shelf comparison. It has to be recalled instantly. This isn't some creative limitation. It's a commercial necessity. And you can see why they struggle with clarity when you look at the different reasons people buy water. The brand is speaking to fundamentally different contexts. You've got home consumption. That's about routine, reliability. It's making sure you don't run out. It's a trust decision. But then you have on-the-go consumption. That's pure immediacy convenience. If I'm grabbing a bottle at a gas station, my mindset is completely different.
Exactly. The logics actively compete. Home buying is about habit and trust. On the go is about convenience and speed. If you try to make a neutral message for both, you end up with something so bland it doesn't trigger either response. You become okay for both, but the first choice for neither.
And that's before you even get to B2B, supplying offices, hotels.
And the B2B market is even less forgiving. There, storytelling takes a backseat to logistics. Reliability beats narrative. Knowing the truck will show up on time with the right order, that outweighs a beautiful story about natural wells. Consistency beats novelty every time, so the priority has to be deliberate. You can't win everywhere at once. The brand has to pick one primary context to win first and treat the others as secondary until that core story is actually landing.
Okay, so moving into execution. Let's look at the channel footprint, which is where you can often see the friction. And we found a signal of complexity right away on the web. There are 2 domains, Gulfa.ae and Gulfawater.ae. Both show signs of e-commerce. Having 2 separate, maybe incomplete web experiences that just dilutes consistency and fragments your SEO signals.
It's such a classic problem for a mature brand, isn't it? Different teams, different agencies launch things over the years, and they all just keep running in parallel. Then you add social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, plus those offline signals like sponsoring Right Edgeman.
Which are great assets.
They're fantastic assets for credibility. But they're only valuable if they connect back to a repeatable brand story on your main channels. If the event says, Gulfa is for fitness, but the website says, Gulfa is about heritage, you've just wasted the opportunity. The messages cancel each other out.
And we have to stay grounded in the reality of the category. In bottled water, digital is a great signal amplifier. It's where you can test messages and get reach. But it can't replace the fundamentals. Trade trust is built through physical execution, through relationships. And most importantly, shelf credibility is still king. The final decision is physical. If I see your great ad online, but your bottle is indistinguishable from the cheaper one next to it, all that digital awareness just collapses into substitution.
That's the key insight for FMCG water. Offline reality overrules online intent. Effectiveness comes from role clarity for each channel, not from just having a high channel count.
Which brings us to the hard part. The argument for actually cutting communication. Right now, they repeat multiple themes. Quality, purity, health, reliability. And they're all fine claims on their own. But together, they compete for that tiny bit of attention. And they absolutely cancel memorability. Breadth is the enemy of recall.
Well, think about the cognitive load on the consumer. The current communication sort of assumes that busy shoppers will pause, read the claims, interpret them, and compare rationally. But in reality, decisions are habitual, they're visual, they're instant, attention is low, and time is zero.
So if your communication needs deep interpretation, It's basically designed to fail. The
Well,
operational takeaway is it's vital. Less messaging with higher repetition beats variety. Performance improves when you reduce the messages and just repeat one story.
and this takes real executive courage. Cutting communication isn't a loss of creativity. It is the most direct way to build preference in these high-pressure, commoditized environments. You're removing friction.
Right, so let's connect that directly to the commercial impact.
If we connect this strategy to the bigger picture, you see exactly how it influences your margin. Price sensitivity in a category like this is fundamentally amplified when marketing fails to give the consumer a clear emotional reason to choose your brand. When the message is unclear, or it relies on generic claims like purity, then price automatically becomes the only comparable variable left at the shelf. You're forcing the consumer to decide on cost because you haven't given them anything else.
Which feeds that promotional trap we talked about.
Mm.
You actually train consumers to wait for the discount. You condition them to associate buying your product with a deal, not with a preference.
Exactly.
So let's talk about the immediate team-level actions. The great thing about this review is that the fixes don't require huge new budgets. They just require discipline before ambition.
The first step is just internal alignment. Define one message hierarchy. The team has to select one single primary value message that wins that moment of choice. Let's say it's their heritage of local trust. Then you define 2 or 3 points that only support that story. Everything else gets paused.
And you enforce a strict rule. If a message doesn't reinforce that primary story, it does not get published, period.
Second, assign clear roles per channel. Stop posting the same 5 things everywhere. Define one specific job for each channel. Maybe the website is for trust, Instagram is for reach, LinkedIn is for trade. A channel without a role is just noise.
Third, align all your content and your visuals around that one story. This means doing an audit and ruthlessly removing content, even good content, if it introduces a new angle. The mantra has to be consistency beats creativity. You're optimizing for memory.
And fourth, the hardest one, remove parallel messaging. This means fixing that internal friction between different teams or agencies. Enforce one approved message source, centralize the sign-off. Because if your own team is explaining the brand differently internally, you have zero hope the market will ever get it.
And this plan also lays out what to push now and what to freeze. You push message simplification, you push radical repetition, which means you have to stop rotating messages for freshness. And you push for that channel role clarity.
And what you freeze are those secondary messages. And any low-impact content that just generates reach but no actual recall. You have to free up cognitive space. And crucially, what you must not touch without solid internal data is pricing or portfolio expansion. You create clarity first. Touching those commercial levers while the messaging is broken just creates more risk.
So this brings us all the way back to the core insight for you, the listener. Substitution risk isn't just a pricing problem, it's a communication failure. It's highest when a brand speaks in category-level language and allows multiple messages to compete at once.
And the path to fast, clean impact in a tough category like this, it involves massive discipline, not necessarily disruption. It's about simplifying, picking one core story, and repeating it with relentless consistency.
And the review states the commercial bottom line perfectly. Marketing does not protect margin by simply chasing volume. Marketing protects margin by protecting clarity and preference.
And we'll leave you with this final provocative thought, which comes right from the sources we analyzed. Focus is not created by adding. It is created by removing friction, noise, and internal competition. Yeah. So if you were forced today to identify the one thing in your own work, a process, a meeting, a piece of communication that you would remove to instantly increase focus and clarity, what would it be? In commoditized markets, discipline truly precedes growth.